Here's some troubling news. This morning, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced a series of major changes for the company, including, get this, the end of its fact-checking program for Facebook and Instagram. It's going to be replaced with a system similar to the Community Notes that's found on the social media platform X. Let's bring in right now the co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box and New York Times columnist Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, it just goes from bad to worse with Meta and with so many others. Anne Applebaum, who of course is a brilliant writer and writes on autocrats and misinformation, has talked and warned about for some time about the fact that Meta, Facebook, Instagram, X, other companies are deliberately pushing down threads, deliberately pushing down, suppressing political journalism and gutting its fact-checking system. And now Mark Zuckerberg does this, and he says that there's a shifting political and social landscape and the desire to embrace free speech. Yeah, well, is that like what we've seen on X, where misinformation is worse today than it's ever been?
Well, let me add a couple of notes to this. In addition to those things that you just described, they added Dana White, the head of the UFC, to their board in the last 24 hours. Just give you a little bit of political context of what's happening here. Nick Clegg, who you may remember was running their policy business, he's now leaving the company. The other thing they said, interestingly, was to the extent that they are going to have people working for Facebook policing, if you will, content, they are moving out of California, those people in that department, to the state of Texas and other states. So just to put sort of the full picture here, Community Notes, by the way, I think in some respects is actually a very good product in that it's nice that there are people able to correct the record quickly. The problem is, I think we all know, though, is that, first of all, clickbait, the crazier it is, the farther it goes. And historically, the correction never gets the same kind of airtime that the first post ever gets. And so here we are in this sort of new world. But I think this is not just a Meta or Facebook story. This is a tech story across the board, whether it's this, and obviously Mark Zuckerberg had gone down to see the president-elect recently. Separately, you have Amazon making a documentary deal with Melania Trump. I mean, we can go through the list of what is happening here, but this is a major shift.
In cash, that deal, a significant deal for the Melania Trump documentary. That just was reported this morning. The Meta thing, they say it's for open expression and free speech, but it is precisely in line with what Trump and his allies have been calling for a long time. We're seeing this slowly on every site. And then, of course, there's the video-based social media apps, TikTok, that have no fact-checking whatsoever, not even a Community Notes.
Well, and this goes back to the larger question, which is, and I doubt we're going to get any kind of new rules on this in the next 4 years, but do we think that social media companies should be held to the same liability standards that we are right here? And that's the question. And then there's the question of who's supposed to control all of this. And by the way, I will submit to you that I think some of the algorithmic changes that went on during COVID and other things like that went too far. And I think that part of what we're seeing is a pendulum that is swinging from one way that might have gone too far on one end now to another way. I imagine in a couple of years from now, I think people will say this is way too far. And then the question is, where does it go next? But that's
I mean, they're using that though for such cynical reasons because of mistakes that were made by Twitter and by other social media platforms in the past. They're using that and have used that as an excuse now to go to in the other direction in the most extreme way. And you're so right. What's the old saying that a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on, its pants on, whatever's getting on. And that is the problem with this community policing, is that the lies go out there, they spread, they rapidly, and you have so much misinformation that's being spread on all of these platforms, especially X, that the truth barely stands a chance on the platform of catching up to it, Andrew.
Well, I think that's, and there's going to be a big question, not just how this is going to affect them regulatorily, meaning, does Trump act in a much sort of kinder way towards these companies, which, by the way, there are lawsuits currently outstanding by this U.S. government against companies, including Meta and others. So that's part of it. But the other question is what the user base is going to think and stand for. You go into Threads, interestingly, and Threads is sort of a counter to Twitter. If Threads turns into Twitter, for example,
what's the point?
That may not be a good business ultimately for them. If Facebook turns it, so I don't know, if the consumer is the ultimate sort of arbiter of this, where this is all really going to land.
Also, it might not be a Mark Twain quote, but it's while the truth is putting on its shoes.
What, shoes? What was the thing about pants?
I don't know. I mean, that's your problem,
I think you made that up. I think that's an Andrew Ross Sorkin quote. It's one of these. It's one of these quotes that nobody knows exactly who said it. No, Mark Twain. People have said it's Mark Twain. Jonathan Swift said something like it. But we're just going to go with the Andrew Ross Sorkin quote that has to do with pants, and that's all you need to know. It was CNBC Andrew Ross Sorkin's quote. Andrew, thank you so much as
Thank you, Andrew.
always.